Hey everyone, Sophia here. And you know what? Something absolutely wonderful happened to me today. Something that just made my whole day brighter. I made a new friend, and you won't believe where. At the bus stop. I know, right? It's not exactly where you'd expect to find a kindred spirit. Usually, it's just a sea of faces buried in phones, everyone lost in their own worlds. But today was different. The air was crisp and sunny, the birds were singing, and I was just enjoying the morning when I noticed a girl about my age looking a little lost. We started chatting, shyly at first, about the bus being late, and then somehow, we just clicked. We talked about everything, books, movies, our dreams for the future. Honestly, it felt like magic. It was just so easy and natural, like we'd known each other forever. It filled me with this warm, bubbly feeling of happiness, and I just knew I had to share it with you all. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And remember, there are new videos released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just need to escape? Like, truly escape, not just a weekend getaway, but a proper immersion in something bigger than yourself? Well, that's exactly how I felt last spring. Work was crazy, life was, well, life, and I just craved a reset. So, I decided, on a whim, really, to visit a national park. I'd never been to one before. Can you believe it? Grew up in the city, concrete jungle and all that. I chose Zion National Park. I'd seen pictures, these breathtaking canyons, the Virgin River winding through them. It just called to me. And let me tell you, the pictures? They don't do it justice. Not even close. So, I packed my bags. Way too much, as it turned out. Hiking boots I'd never worn, a ridiculous amount of snacks, you know the drill. I flew into Vegas, rented a car, and started the drive. Even the drive itself was an experience. The landscape changed so dramatically. 1 minute, it's all glitz and glam, billboards and casinos, and the next, it's vast. Open desert stretching to the horizon, these incredible rock formations starting to appear in the distance. It was like driving into a painting. I arrived at Springdale, the little town right outside Zion, late in the afternoon. The air was already cooler, crisper than Vegas. The smell of pine, oh, that smell. I can almost smell it now. I checked into this charming little lodge, all wood and stone, and immediately felt a sense of calm wash over me. Like, okay, I'm here now. The next morning, I woke up early. Like, ridiculously early. The excitement, you know? I grabbed a quick breakfast, granola bar, banana, the works, and headed into the park. First stop, the visitor center. You know, gotta get the lay of the land, grab a map, look like I know what I'm doing. The ranger at the desk was super friendly. She recommended a few trails for a first-timer like me. The Paris Trail, a paved path along the Virgin River, seemed like a good starting point. And then, she mentioned the Emerald Pools Trail. A bit of a climb, she said, but the views are worth it. Challenge accepted, right? So, I started with the Paris Trail. Easy peasy. But even that, the sheer scale of the canyon walls towering above me, the river so clear and green, the sunlight filtering through the trees, it was just stunning. I saw deer grazing peacefully by the riverbank. Little chipmunks darting around, completely unfazed by the humans. I stopped every few minutes just to take it all in. To breathe. After a couple of miles, I reached the trailhead for the Emerald Pools. Now, remember those hiking boots I mentioned? The ones I'd never worn? Yeah, they were starting to rub. Rookie mistake, I know. But the excitement, the adrenaline, kind of masked the discomfort at first. The trail started climbing, switchbacks carving their way up the canyon wall. And the higher I climbed, the more incredible the views became. I could see the valley spreading out below, the river snaking through it like a ribbon. The air was thinner up there, cooler, and the smell of pine was even stronger. The lower Emerald Pool was beautiful, a little oasis tucked away in the rocks. But I was determined to reach the upper pools. So, I kept climbing. The trail got steeper, narrower, and honestly, a little bit scary in places. There were chains bolted into the rock face to help you along. Remember that bit of a climb the ranger mentioned? Yeah, she was being modest. But I made it, and oh my goodness, the upper emerald pool. It was like something out of a fairy tale. This crystal clear pool of water nestled high up in the cliffs, surrounded by lush greenery. The waterfall cascading down into it, the sound of the water echoing through the canyon. It was magical. I sat there for a long time, just soaking it all in. Forgot all about my aching feet, the stress of work, everything. Just me and the canyon. The hike back down was interesting. My legs were definitely feeling it. Those new boots were now officially my enemies. I slipped a couple of times, nothing major, but enough to make me realize I needed to be more careful. And you know what? That's when I started to really appreciate the quiet moments. The small things. The way the sunlight dappled through the leaves. The tiny wildflowers growing in the cracks of the rocks. The quiet hum of nature all around me. Back at the lodge, I soaked my feet in a bucket of ice water, seriously, a lifesaver, and just sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the canyon walls in shades of pink and orange. I felt different, renewed, like I'd shed a layer of stress I didn't even realize I was carrying. The next few days were filled with more exploring. I took the shuttle deeper into the canyon, hiked to the riverside walk, much easier on the feet, and even tried canyoneering, rappelling down a slot canyon. Talk about an adrenaline rush. I made friends with other hikers, swapped stories, shared snacks. It was this incredible sense of community, like we were all in awe of this amazing place together. One evening, I sat by the river, watching the stars come out. The sky was so clear, so full of stars, it was breathtaking. I'd never seen anything like it in the city. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a connection to nature, to myself, to something bigger than me. Leaving Zion was hard, like saying goodbye to an old friend. But I left with a piece of it inside me. A sense of peace, a renewed appreciation for the natural world, and a burning desire to explore more of these incredible places. And those hiking boots? Well, they're broken in now. Ready for the next adventure. So, yeah, that was my first national park experience. Life-changing, honestly. You should go. Seriously. You know what I mean? It's one of those things you just have to experience for yourself. You won't regret it. What are you waiting for? Okay. So, grab a cuppa. Settle in, because this is a story. A saga, even. A saga about a photo frame. Sounds mundane, right? Oh, you have no idea. This wasn't just any photo frame. This was the photo frame. The one meant for the picture of me and my ridiculously photogenic dog, Luna, at the beach. You know, the one where she's covered in sand and has that goofy, tongue-lolling grin? Yeah, that picture. Deserved a proper frame, didn't it? I thought so too. So, naturally, I decided to DIY it. How hard could it be? Famous last words, right? I'd seen those beautifully rustic, driftwood-esque frames on Pinterest, all beachy and weathered. I was totally convinced I could whip one up. Plus, you know, save a few bucks. The universe had other plans, let me tell you. First hurdle? Finding driftwood. I live in, like, the most landlocked city imaginable. The closest I get to the ocean is the little plastic lobster on my keychain. So, the driftwood hunt began. I started by scouring local parks, which mainly yielded confused stares from dogwalkers and a collection of surprisingly sharp twigs. Not exactly frame-worthy. Then, I remembered Uncle Jerry. He lives a couple of hours away, near a lake, and his backyard is basically a graveyard for discarded fishing gear and, you guessed it, driftwood. Road trip. Luna and I packed up the car, her with her favorite squeaky toy, me with visions of rustic frame glory. Uncle Jerry, bless his heart, was thrilled to see me, less thrilled about my driftwood scavenging. He gave me this look, like, are you sure you wouldn't rather just buy one? But he humored me, pointing towards a massive pile of wood near his shed. Knock yourself out, kiddo, he said, with a chuckle I now recognize as foreshadowing. Now, imagine this. Me, knee-deep in splintery wood, Luna sniffing enthusiastically at every piece of decaying bark. It was an experience. The air smelled like damp earth and lake water, with a faint hint of fish. Not exactly ocean breeze, but it was something. After what felt like an eternity, I finally found it. A beautiful, gnarled piece of wood, weathered to perfection, just the right size. Eureka! Back home, I laid out my tools. Saw, sandpaper, glue, nails, little metal brackets, you know, the works. I felt like a proper craftswoman. I carefully measured the picture, marked the wood, and started sawing. Now, here's where things get interesting. Turns out sawing through a piece of thick, weathered wood is not as effortless as those YouTube tutorials make it look. My arms ached, sawdust flew everywhere, and the cut, well, let's just say it was less straight line, and more zigzag journey of discovery. But, hey, rustic, right? That's what I kept telling myself. Sanding was, well, sandy. My entire living room was coated in a fine layer of wood dust. Luna thought it was fantastic, rolling around in it like a furry little dust bunny. I, however, was less amused. My throat was scratchy, my eyes were watering, and I was pretty sure I'd inhaled enough wood particles to build a miniature log cabin in my lungs. But the wood was smooth, finally. Progress. Then came the glue. Oh, the glue. I used wood glue, naturally, but how much is too much? Apparently, the answer is any amount more than a tiny, carefully controlled squeeze. I ended up with glue oozing out from every join, dripping onto my newspaper, and, inevitably, onto Luna's fur. She, bless her heart, didn't seem to mind. She just licked it off. I, on the other hand, was frantically wiping up the excess with a damp cloth, muttering things I probably shouldn't repeat. After the glue apocalypse, it was time for the nails. I'd envisioned neatly hammering tiny nails into the wood, securing the frame together with precision and grace. Reality, however, involved me hammering the nails in crookedly, bending them, and occasionally hitting my thumb. You know that throbbing, dull ache you get when you smack your thumb with a hammer? Yeah, I got well acquainted with that. But, you know what? Despite the crooked cuts, the gluey mess, the bent nails, and the throbbing thumb, the frame, it was, kind of, holding together. Sort of. It was wobbly, and definitely not something you'd see in a fancy home decor store, but it was mine. I'd made it, with my own 2 hands, and a few borrowed tools from Uncle Jerry. The final touch was the little metal brackets to hold the picture in. Piece of cake, right? Wrong. The screws were tiny. The screwdriver kept slipping, and I ended up scratching the wood in several places. But, finally, miraculously, the brackets were in. I carefully slid the picture of me and Luna into the frame, held my breath, and it fit. It wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect. It was wonky, and glue-stained, and slightly scratched. But it was perfect. You know what I mean? It held that precious memory, that goofy, sandy grin, and it was a testament to my somewhat questionable crafting skills. And, honestly, looking at it now, hanging on my wall, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It reminds me of that whole crazy process, the sawdust, the glue, the aching thumb. It reminds me of Luna, happily covered in wood dust and glue. It reminds me of Uncle Jerry's knowing chuckle. It reminds me that sometimes, the most imperfect things are the most beautiful. And it definitely reminds me to maybe just buy a frame next time. But, hey, where's the fun in that? Right? So, there you have it. The epic tale of the DIY photo frame. Worth every splinter, every glue stain, and every throbbing thumb. Now, whose turn is it to tell a story? I'm ready for another cuppa. Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, but remember, the view from the top is incredible. Speaking your heart, not your grammar, is a powerful idea because it reminds us that connection is key. It's about expressing yourself, sharing your thoughts and feelings, even if your sentences aren't perfect. Honestly, it's so liberating to let go of that pressure and just talk. It truly boosts your confidence when you realize you can communicate and be understood. You know what can be a really fun way to practice? Narrating a scary story alone. Imagine yourself cooking dinner or taking a walk, and suddenly you're whispering a chilling tale to yourself. It might sound silly, but it's a fantastic way to practice fluency without the pressure of an audience. You can experiment with different tones, vocabulary, and even try different accents. Plus, it's surprisingly entertaining. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? Worrying about pronunciation errors is totally normal. We've all been there. It can feel like a little voice in your head stopping you from saying what you want to say. You might stumble over a word or worry about sounding weird, but trust me, everyone makes mistakes. It's a natural part of the learning process. Speaking of milestones, I remember the first time I confidently ordered coffee in another language. The barista understood me perfectly, and you will not believe what happened next. I felt like I could conquer the world. And you know what? That little victory made me want to practice even more. What's your proudest moment speaking English so far? I'd love to hear about it. Okay, so, you want to hear a story? A real story? Alright, grab your metaphorical cuppa, or a real one. I won't judge, and settle in, because this one's a good one. It's about my first trip to the beach. Ever. I know, right? Seems impossible in this day and age, but I grew up smack dab in the middle of nowhere, landlocked as could be. The closest thing we had to an ocean was Mrs. Higgins' overflowing birdbath. So, picture this. I'm maybe 5, 6 years old, pigtails sticking out at odd angles, and wearing this ridiculous floral swimsuit my grandma made. Think, ruffled monstrosity. It was something else. Anyway, my family finally scraped together enough for a week-long vacation at the coast. We're talking Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the real deal. And me? I was practically vibrating with excitement. I'd seen pictures, of course, but they couldn't even begin to capture it. The car ride felt like it took a million years. Every time we passed a billboard with a glimpse of blue, I'd practically press my nose against the window, like I could somehow teleport myself there. My dad kept joking, "Hold your horses, kiddo. You'll get your fill of sand soon enough." He had no idea. Then, finally, we arrived. We parked the car, and I remember tumbling out, a bit dizzy from the journey. And there it was, the ocean, stretching out in front of me, this vast, shimmering expanse of, well, blue. But not just any blue. It was like 1,000 different shades all swirled together, turquoise and emerald and sapphire, shimmering under the sun. I just stood there, completely mesmerized. Have you ever seen something so beautiful it kind of takes your breath away? That was it, right there. The air smelled different. Not like the dusty fields back home. This was salty, fresh, with a hint of something sweet, almost like candy floss. Weird, I know, but that's what it smelled like to me. The sound, too, was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not just the crashing waves, which were magnificent, mind you, but also the cries of the gulls overhead, the gentle shushing of the waves receding, the distant laughter of other beachgoers. It was a symphony of the sea, and I was hooked. My parents were busy unpacking the car, so I just kind of wandered. Slowly, cautiously, my little sandals sinking into the warm, dry sand. It felt so strange, grainy, yet soft. I wiggled my toes, burying them deeper, a little thrill shooting up my spine. This was it. This was the life. I edged closer to the water, my heart thumping in my chest. The wet sand was firmer, cooler, and the waves, well, they were bigger than I'd imagined. Each one that rolled in looked like a giant, frothy monster, ready to swallow me whole. I was equal parts terrified and exhilarated. I dipped a toe in. Freezing. I yelped and jumped back, a surprised laugh escaping my lips. My mom, hearing the commotion, came rushing over. "Everything all right, sweetie?" she asked, a worried look on her face. "It's cold," I declared, as if she hadn't noticed the Arctic temperatures of the Atlantic in July. She chuckled and rolled up her jeans. "Well, you gotta get used to it. Come on." And with that, she took my hand, and we waded in together. The shock of the cold water quickly gave way to pure joy. The waves crashed around our ankles, pulling and tugging, playful little nips at our feet. I squealed with delight, splashing and jumping, my earlier fear forgotten. I was a mermaid, a sea monster, a fearless explorer, all rolled into one. We spent the rest of the day building sandcastles, magnificent, towering fortresses that would crumble with the next high tide, but we didn't care. We hunted for seashells, each one a precious jewel to be added to my growing collection. We ate sandy sandwiches and sticky popsicles, and I even bravely tried a bite of my dad's shrimp, which, surprisingly, wasn't as bad as I'd expected. Guess what happened next? I got sunburnt. Badly. Like, lobster red. Can't move my arms badly. My grandma's ruffled swimsuit monstrosity did absolutely nothing to protect my delicate skin. I spent the next few days slathered in aloe vera, whining and moaning dramatically. It was not a pretty sight. But you know what? Even the sunburn couldn't dampen my spirits. That first day, at the beach, it was magic. Pure, unadulterated magic. It was the feeling of freedom, the thrill of discovery, the sheer joy of being alive and experiencing something completely new. It changed me, that trip. It opened my eyes to a world beyond the dusty fields and the overflowing birdbaths. It sparked a lifelong love affair with the ocean, a yearning for the salty air and the sound of crashing waves. Even now, years later, I can close my eyes and be right back there. I can feel the warm sand between my toes, the cool spray of the ocean on my face. I can hear the laughter of my family, the cries of the gulls, the rhythmic roar of the waves. And that ridiculous ruffled swimsuit? Well, let's just say it became a family legend. A reminder of that little girl, standing on the edge of the ocean, her heart filled with wonder and a touch of healthy fear, ready to embrace the magic of the sea. You know what I mean? It's those little moments, those first experiences, that shape us, that stay with us forever. And my first trip to the beach? That's a story I'll be telling for a long, long time. Okay, so, picture this. It was a Tuesday, right? A perfectly normal Tuesday, except I had decided to finally visit the botanical gardens. I'd been meaning to go for ages, literally ages, but you know how it is, life gets in the way. Work, errands, Netflix binges, the usual suspects. Anyway, this Tuesday, something was different. I woke up with this sudden, overwhelming urge to be surrounded by greenery. Like, I needed it. Viscerally. So, I threw on a comfy dress. The kind with pockets, essential for botanical garden adventures, you know. Grabbed my sunglasses, and practically skipped out the door. The gardens weren't far, thankfully, just a short bus ride away. And let me tell you, even the bus ride was an adventure. This tiny little dog, a fluffy white cloud of a creature, hopped on with its owner and spent the whole journey trying to lick my hand through the gap in the seats. It was adorable. When I arrived, the air was different. Crisper, cleaner. You could almost taste the oxygen. It was like stepping into a different world. And the smell? Oh, the smell. That earthy, green scent mixed with the sweet perfume of blooming flowers. Heaven. Pure heaven. I started my wander through the rose garden. Rows and rows of roses, every color imaginable. Deep crimson, soft blush pink, sunny yellow, even a strange, almost black-purple variety that looked like velvet. I bent down to inhale the fragrance of a particularly beautiful apricot-colored rose and, guess what? A bee, buzzing right around my head. I swear, I almost jumped out of my skin. I'm not afraid of bees, not really, but I definitely prefer to admire them from a safe distance. From the rose garden, I followed a winding path that led deeper into the heart of the gardens. There was a small pond with these enormous lily pads, I'm talking dinner plate sized, easily. And tiny frogs sunning themselves on the leaves. I watched them for a while, mesmerized by their stillness. It was so peaceful, so utterly tranquil. You know those moments when you just feel completely present, utterly absorbed in the beauty of the world around you? That's how I felt. Then, things got interesting. I stumbled upon this hidden little grove. It was tucked away behind a thick hedge, almost like a secret garden. Yes, I know, cliché, but seriously, it felt like something out of a book. Inside, there were these incredible, exotic-looking flowers. Bright orange blossoms shaped like trumpets, delicate purple orchids dangling from the branches of a small tree, and these huge, spiky plants that I couldn't even begin to identify. I was so captivated by this hidden oasis that I didn't notice the sign. Tiny, almost hidden by the leaves. It read, "Caution, sensitive plants. Do not touch." Of course, I noticed it after I'd already brushed my hand against one of the spiky plants. You know, just a light touch. Curiosity, you know? Well, let me tell you, that plant did not appreciate my curiosity. Within seconds, my hand started itching. Then burning. Then itching and burning at the same time. It was like 1,000 tiny needles pricking my skin. I'm pretty sure I yelped loudly, and then I did a little dance of discomfort, flapping my hand around like a wounded bird. It was not my most graceful moment. Luckily, the grove was deserted, so no one witnessed my embarrassing little performance. After a quick rinse at a nearby fountain, thankfully the water was cool and soothing, I decided to be a little more cautious in my explorations. I consulted the map I'd picked up at the entrance. Apparently, I'd wandered into the medicinal plant section. Who knew? The rest of the afternoon was a blur of vibrant colors, fragrant blossoms, and the gentle hum of bees. I wandered through a bamboo forest, the stalks swaying gently in the breeze, creating a soothing, almost hypnotic sound. I discovered a greenhouse filled with carnivorous plants, Venus flytraps, pitcher plants, the whole shebang. Fascinating, but slightly terrifying. I even saw a hummingbird, a tiny jewel flitting among the flowers. And then, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the gardens, I found myself in the Japanese garden. It was like stepping into a painting, a perfectly raked gravel garden, a small wooden bridge arching over a stream, a stone lantern casting a soft glow. I sat on a bench, listening to the gentle trickle of the water, feeling completely at peace. It was a perfect ending to a perfect day. Except, well, almost perfect. Remember that itchy, burning hand? It was still bothering me. In fact, it was starting to look a little alarming. Bright red, slightly swollen. Not great. So, on my way home, I stopped at the pharmacy. The pharmacist, bless his heart, tried not to laugh when I explained my encounter with the mysterious spiky plant. Apparently, it was some kind of stinging nettle, known for its enthusiastic defense mechanisms. He gave me some cream and assured me it would be fine, and you know what? It was. The itching and burning eventually subsided, leaving only a slightly embarrassing red patch as a reminder of my botanical garden adventure. But honestly, even with the stinging nettle incident, it was one of the best days I'd had in ages. It reminded me to slow down, to appreciate the beauty around me, and to maybe, just maybe, pay a little more attention to those warning signs. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was my walk through the botanical garden. A little chaotic, a little itchy, but ultimately, absolutely wonderful. It made me realize how much I needed that connection with nature, that escape from the everyday hustle. And who knows, maybe I'll even go back next week. Just, maybe I'll steer clear of the stinging nettles this time. What do you think? Learning a language is like planting a tree. Nurture it daily. Think about it. You wouldn't expect a sapling to become a mighty oak overnight, right? It takes time, care, and consistent watering. Similarly, your English speaking skills will blossom with regular practice. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, is like adding nutrients to the soil of your language garden. Believe in the process, and watch yourself grow. And speaking of practice, here's a fun idea. Pretend you're hosting your own radio show. Imagine yourself in the studio, maybe while you're cooking dinner or taking a walk, and just start talking about anything that comes to mind, the weather, your plans for the weekend, what you're learning in English. It's a simple, effortless way to get comfortable with speaking without the pressure of a real audience. You will not believe how much this can boost your confidence. Not knowing how to ask for clarification politely can be so frustrating, can't it? You understand perfectly what someone is saying in English, but then when it's your turn to speak, your mind goes blank. Or maybe you catch most of what's being said but miss a crucial word and feel too shy to ask what it meant. Honestly, it felt like magic the first time I managed to smoothly ask, "Could you repeat that, please?" without stumbling over my words. And you know what? Teaching someone else, even just a few simple words or phrases, can be incredibly helpful for your own learning. I remember teaching my little nephew how to say, hello, and thank you, in English, and it actually reinforced those words in my own mind. Have you ever taught someone else English? Words or phrases? I would love to hear your experiences. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just need a change. Not a big, dramatic life overhaul, but just something different? A little shift in perspective? Well, that's where I was last week. Feeling a little stuck, you know? Like my creativity was hibernating and my usual joys felt a bit flat. So, I decided to shake things up, starting small. I was at this adorable little market, all overflowing with handmade soaps and quirky pottery, and tucked away in a corner was this stall piled high with incense. Incense. I hadn't burned incense in ages. It reminded me of my college days, all patchouli and sandalwood, trying to create a bohemian vibe in my tiny dorm room. But this stall? This was different. The scents were extraordinary. Not your typical head shop fare. There were delicate florals I'd never encountered, smoky woods that smelled like a crackling fireplace on a snowy night, and spicy, earthy blends that were just intoxicating. I spent, probably a good half hour just hovering there, sniffing little sample sticks like a curious squirrel. The woman running the stall, bless her heart, was the epitome of patience. She had this serene smile and these knowing eyes, like she could read your aura or something. She saw me overwhelmed and gently suggested I try something called Forest Dawn. This one, she said, her voice soft as a whisper. This one opens the mind and invites clarity. Clarity. That's exactly what I needed. So, I bought a small pack, feeling a little flutter of excitement, like maybe, just maybe, this little stick of incense could be the catalyst for something more. I got home, practically buzzing with anticipation. I lit a candle, a vanilla-scented one, my favorite, and carefully placed the Forest Dawn stick in its little holder. Now, here's where I made my first rookie mistake. Remember how I said it had been ages since I'd burned incense? Well, I'd completely forgotten about ventilation. I lit the stick, took a deep breath, and whoosh! Exclamation mark. A plume of smoke, thick and potent, billowed out, instantly filling my small apartment. I coughed, spluttered, and fanned the air frantically. My eyes watered, my nose tickled, and I'm pretty sure the smoke alarm was giving me the side eye. Smooth move, I muttered to myself, feeling utterly ridiculous. I threw open the windows, letting the crisp autumn air rush in and dissipate the smoky haze. Once the air cleared, a softer, more nuanced fragrance began to emerge. It wasn't the overwhelming blast of scent I'd initially experienced. This was different, subtle, intriguing. It wasn't just forest you know? It was like, imagine walking through a redwood forest at dawn, the air still cool and damp, the sunlight just beginning to filter through the towering trees. Can you picture it? The earthy scent of pine needles underfoot, the delicate sweetness of wildflowers just beginning to bloom, a hint of damp moss on ancient bark. It was all of that, captured in this delicate wisp of smoke. I closed my eyes and just breathed. The fragrance seemed to settle around me, not just in my nose, but in my mind, in my chest. It was calming, centering, and yes, I know this might sound a little woo-woo, but I swear, I felt this sense of opening, like a little window in my mind had been unlatched, letting in fresh air and light. Guess what happened next? I started writing. Not just any writing, but the kind that flows effortlessly, the kind where the words just pour out of you, like they've been waiting to be released. I'd been struggling with writer's block for weeks, and here I was, suddenly inspired, my fingers flying across the keyboard. It wasn't just the writing, though. The whole atmosphere of my apartment shifted. It felt lighter, brighter, more alive. I put on some music, something instrumental and soothing, and just let myself be carried away by the creative flow. I danced a little, hummed along, and felt this surge of joy I hadn't experienced in a long time. It's funny, isn't it? How something so small, so seemingly insignificant, can have such a profound impact. A simple stick of incense. Who knew? It wasn't just the fragrance, though, was it? It was the intention, the act of creating a space for myself, for my creativity, for my well-being. It was a reminder to slow down, to breathe, to connect with my senses. I've been burning Forest Dawn every day since then. Not always for writing, sometimes just for being. For enjoying the quiet moments, for appreciating the small things, for feeling a little more grounded and connected. It's become a ritual, a small act of self-care that has had a surprisingly big impact on my overall mood and well-being. Now, I know, not every incense stick is going to be a life-changing experience. And maybe it's not even the incense itself, but the mindset it cultivates. But for me, in that moment, that little stick of forest dawn was exactly what I needed. It was a gentle nudge, a subtle reminder that sometimes, all it takes is a small shift, a little spark of inspiration, to reignite the flame within. You know what I mean? It's made me realize how much we underestimate the power of our senses. We're so bombarded with visual and auditory stimuli all the time that we often forget to tap into the other senses: smell, touch, taste. But these senses, they hold so much power. They can evoke memories, trigger emotions, and transport us to another time and place. It's like opening a secret door to a deeper level of awareness and experience. I've become a bit obsessed, actually. I've started exploring other fragrances, experimenting with different blends, creating my own little sensory rituals. It's become a fun journey of discovery, a way to explore different moods and emotions. There's this amazing sandalwood and rose blend that I burn when I need to feel grounded and calm, and a citrusy, uplifting one that's perfect for when I need a boost of energy. It's like having a whole apothecary of moods at my fingertips. It's also reminded me of the importance of creating a space for yourself, a sanctuary where you can relax, recharge, and reconnect with your inner self. Whether it's burning incense, listening to music, taking a long bath, or simply sitting in silence, it's crucial to carve out those moments of stillness and solitude. It's in those quiet moments that we often find the clarity and inspiration we seek. So, yeah, that's my story. The story of how a simple stick of incense unexpectedly opened a window to creativity, mindfulness, and a deeper appreciation for the power of our senses. It's a reminder that sometimes, the smallest things can have the biggest impact, and that even in the midst of chaos and overwhelm, there's always room for a little magic, a little spark of joy, a little forest dawn. Okay, so, grab a cuppa, settle in, because this is a story, a real saga, about my piano journey. It's a bit of a winding road, you know? Filled with bum notes and triumphs, and everything in between. It all started, I guess, with my grandmother, Nana Rose. She had this upright piano in her living room. Not a grand piano, oh no, but to me, it might as well have been. Dark, polished wood, gleaming in the afternoon sun that streamed through the lace curtains. Remember those kinds of curtains? The ones that made little dancing patterns on the carpet? Anyway, the piano. It always smelled faintly of beeswax and something else, something almost magical. Can a smell be magical? I think so. It was this combination of old paper, dust motes dancing in the light, and music itself, I swear. Nana Rose played beautifully, not professionally or anything, but with such feeling. She'd play these old, slightly melancholic Irish tunes, and I'd just sit there, mesmerized. Tiny little me, perched on the edge of the floral sofa, completely absorbed. I'd watch her fingers dance across the keys, long, elegant fingers, with these slightly knobbly knuckles. I remember thinking her hands looked like they held stories. And they did, of course. Every note a word, every phrase a sentence, every song a whole chapter. So, naturally, I wanted to play too. I mean, who wouldn't? It looked so effortless, so enchanting. I'd pester Nana Rose constantly. Nana, Nana, teach me. Teach me. I must have been incredibly annoying, looking back. But she was always so patient. She'd smile, this warm, crinkly smile, and say, "Patience, little sparrow." All in good time. Good time arrived when I was 7. My parents, bless their hearts, somehow scraped together enough money for a rickety old upright of our own. It wasn't nearly as grand as Nana Rose's, but it was mine. And it was glorious. It arrived on the back of a lorry, all wrapped up in blankets like some precious, fragile creature. I remember the sheer excitement, the anticipation. It felt like Christmas morning, birthday, and the first day of summer holidays all rolled into one. My first lesson was, well, let's just say it was humbling. My teacher, Mrs. Higgins, was a tiny woman with a stern face and a surprisingly loud voice. She smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs. She showed me where middle C was, explained the concept of sharps and flats, and, That was pretty much it for the first few weeks. Scales, arpeggios, endless, repetitive exercises. My fingers felt clumsy, like sausages. I kept hitting the wrong notes. My enthusiasm, which had been burning so brightly, started to flicker a little. Why can't I play a real song? I whined to my mum one day, after a particularly frustrating practice session. Rome wasn't built in a day, she'd say, patiently. You have to learn the basics first. Easy for her to say. She wasn't the one wrestling with those pesky black keys. But you know what? She was right, of course. Slowly, painstakingly, things started to click. My fingers, those clumsy sausages, started to become more nimble, more obedient. I began to understand the rhythm, the melody, the language of music. Mrs. Higgins, while still stern, started to offer the occasional, almost imperceptible smile. And those smiles, let me tell you, were like gold dust. They meant I was doing something right. My first, real, song was Chopsticks. Revolutionary, I know, but I played it with such pride, such a sense of accomplishment. I remember performing it for my parents in the living room, heart pounding in my chest. They clapped, of course, beaming with pride. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt like a real musician. From then on, there was no stopping me. I devoured sheet music, practicing every chance I got. I graduated from chopsticks to simple sonatinas, then to more complex pieces. I discovered Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. I learned about different periods, different styles, different composers. The world of music opened up before me, vast and exhilarating. Of course, there were still setbacks. Plenty of them. There were times I wanted to give up, to throw the sheet music across the room and never touch the piano again. There were tears, tantrums, and frustrated silences. There were competitions where I messed up royally, forgetting entire sections of pieces I'd practiced for months. Mortifying. You know that feeling, right? When your mind just goes blank and your fingers turn to lead. But then there were the good moments. The moments when everything flowed, when the music took over and I felt like I was flying. The moments when I could close my eyes and lose myself in the melody. Those moments made all the struggle, all the frustration, worthwhile. One particular memory stands out. I was around 14, and I was preparing for a music festival. I was playing a Chopin nocturne, a beautiful, melancholic piece that I absolutely adored. I'd been practicing it for months, pouring my heart and soul into every note. The night before the festival, I was having a particularly rough practice session. I kept stumbling over a tricky passage, getting flustered and frustrated. My dad came into the room and sat down beside me. He didn't say anything, just listened. When I finally finished, he put his hand on my shoulder. You know, he said, sometimes, the most beautiful music comes from the imperfections. The little hesitations, the slight changes in tempo. It's what makes it human. His words resonated with me. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about expressing myself, about telling a story through the music. The next day, at the festival, I didn't play flawlessly. There were a few tiny mistakes, a couple of hesitant moments, but I played with feeling, with passion. And when I finished, the silence in the hall was electric. Then, the applause erupted. I won first place. But it wasn't about the prize, not really. It was about the connection I felt with the music, with the audience, with myself. It was about realizing that music wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about expressing something deeper, something human. So, yeah, that's my piano story. It's been a journey, a real roller coaster. And you know what? It's still going. I don't play as much as I used to. Life gets in the way, you know? But the piano is still there. And every now and then, when the mood strikes, I sit down and play. And in those moments, I'm transported back to Nana Rose's living room, to the smell of beeswax and magic, to the feeling of those keys beneath my fingers. And it feels like coming home. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for spending this time with me today. It really does mean the world to me that you're here and that we're connecting through this shared love of English. I'd love it if you would follow, like, subscribe, and share this video so we can keep this learning journey going together. I post new content daily to help you boost your English speaking and listening skills. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, what movie or series are you planning to binge next? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is a fantastic way to practice writing in English and connect with other learners. It's like a little online book club. See you tomorrow, everyone, and remember to take good care of yourselves, stay consistent, and keep practicing.